Hello, everyone. Welcome to lecture 3 of our Comp 150. So the plan for today will be the following. So last time we talked about conditions and for loops. Today we'll do while loops. That is also a very important topic. And then we'll do just a bunch of examples. So again, similarly to last time, we will only do coding here and we'll see many different examples. Okay. So that's the plan for today. So this time I have all my files prepared. As usual, they will all be posted. We'll just go over the files one by one. I number them so that I remember the order. Okay, so the first example, we did it last time, but I would like to do it again, actually. So here's what we want to do. We would like to write a program that gets a string and it checks if the string is a palindrome or not. So if you remember last time, what we did some sort of a cleaning. We sort of removed the white spaces and removed commas and turned everything into lowercase. And okay, so now we have our text and we want to check if it's a palindrome or not. So what did we do last time? So last time we did something like this. So we said, let's say n to be the length of our text. And then we said for I in range n, if text in position I is not equal to text in position n minus 1 minus I, right? So the index is from 0 up to n minus 1. So so there is I on one side and the corresponding index on the other side is n minus 1 minus I. Then, so in the beginning we have this Boolean is palindrome, which we set to true in the beginning. And if we see that something is wrong, then we set it to be false. And in the end, we say if is palindrome print text is a palindrome, and otherwise we say text is not a palindrome. So if you notice, I make a slight change in how I use print. So previously I would do something like this, but it turns out we can just use commas to print different parts of the text all in the same line. Okay, and if we want, we can even do something like this. And this will add, sorry, this will add the quotation marks around text. Okay, so what's the problem with this? So one thing we said that, one problem is that I goes all the way up to n. So the way we fixed it, we said, well, it suffices to go up to n over 2 and not up to n. But in fact, there is more. So consider the following example. Let's say text is, I don't know, A and then a bunch of B's and then K at the end. So this is clearly not a palindrome, and we see it because A is not equal to K. So no need to check everything. It suffices. We can stop after the first iteration, right? Because text in position 0 is not equal to text in position n minus 1. Okay. So the way to do it, well, one way to do it is instead of using a for loop, let me comment this out, we'll use a while loop. So here is how we use a while loop. So we will remember the index I, and here's what we say. While I is less than n over 2, okay, I'll write something and then we'll decide. Okay. And then we'll see what exactly we operate. So we want to have this line. So if the, if the corresponding two endpoints, the characters are not equal, we want to set palindrome to false. And here is our condition in the while loop. As long as I is less than n over 2 and is palindrome is true, so we can just write is palindrome, we go inside the loop. If these conditions are not satisfied, we skip the loop. And here what we do is we increment I by 1. Okay. So again, here is what's going on. We take I in the beginning to be 0. We in the beginning is palindrome is true and I is 0. We say, is I less than n over 2? If it is, yeah, we'll go inside the body of the while loop, right? Everything indented is the body of the while loop. If it's still, if for now we see no mistakes, yeah, we go inside the while loop. Okay, we go inside the body of the while loop. Now we check, is there a mistake here? Are these two not equal? If they're not equal, we set it to be false. We increment I. And then we check again, right? Now I is 1. Let's try to do debugging and then we'll see how it actually works. Okay, we need to enter a string. I don't know, we'll enter maybe A, B, C, D, E, B, A. Let's say this is a string that we're entering. Okay, so in the beginning, I is 0. Is I less than, what's n? N is 7. N is the length of the string, it's 7. It's less than 7. Is palindrome is still true? Right? If that's the case, we go inside the body of the while loop. We compare. Is the 0th element equal to the last element? Yes, they're equal, so we don't set it to false. We increase the I by 1. Now I is equal to 1. We compare text in position 1 to text in position, well, 6. Both are equal to B, so we skip the if statement. Okay, we go to the next one. Now we have C here and we have E here. Oh, C and E, they're not equal. So we set it to be false. Okay, we increment I, but that's not important because what will happen in the next iteration is that is palindrome is false, and so we leave the loop. Are we in the if statement? No, we're in the else statement. So print, it's not a palindrome. Okay, so what do we learn about the while loop? A while loop can simulate a for loop, but it stops earlier if we want. Okay, so how about while versus for? And here is what I would like to say about while loop versus for loop. So if we have I in range, I don't know, we have, let's say, n equals 10. Let's say we just print I. This is the same as I set I to be 0. And while I is less than 10, print I and increment I by 1. This is exactly the same thing. Okay. Let's try to add some print statements using for loop, and this one is using while loop. But when we print them, they will do exactly the same thing. Both using for loop and using while loop will print exactly the same string, right? Exactly the same sequence. So the difference is sort of when we do for I in range, I is incremented for us. And in the while loop, we need to increment I ourselves. Okay. So this was the example of checking palindrome, and I hope you understand the difference between for loop and while loop, right? So the biggest difference here is that we can stop here in the middle, and that will be okay, right? Because while loop, we can set this condition that will stop in the middle. Okay, that was example one. Let's try example two. And here's a question. So, I might put similar questions on quizzes or midterms or something like that. So we get a number n and want to print the first n number. So 2, 4, 6, 8 up to 2. Okay, how do we do that? So if we need to get a number, we'll need something, enter the number. And then how do we want to print the first n even numbers? So there are several ways to do it. I guess one is for I in range n, print 2 times I. And you remember this end, it says, don't skip to the next line, right? Instead, put just a space. Let's try running this. I don't know, 6. And it says str object cannot be interpreted as an integer. Why did that happen? Well, it happened because, n, when we get it from the user, it's treated as a string and not as an int. So maybe the way to do it would be to do something like this. Int of, maybe we'll call it user input. Something like this. Let's try it now. 6. Oh yeah, and then it prints. Aha, so it doesn't print from starting from 2, it prints starting from 0. So I guess there are several ways to fix it. Either we'll just add +2 here. Right, that's one way to do it. Another way to do it would be to change the range. Should it go up to 14 or up to 16? Oh. Another way would be to change the range, for example, it's 7. Right, so either the range goes from 1 up to n plus 1, right? And the reason for that is we don't start here from 0. The requirement is to start from 2, 4, 6, and not right. Can we do it using a while loop? Using while. Yeah, let's try to do it using while loop. So we'll set I to be 2, and we'll say while I is less or equal than 2 times n, we'll print I. That also works. While I is less than 2 times n, we'll print I. Let's see. Oh no, what happened? Why is it printing 2 so many times? The reason is that I forgot to increment I. Right, so the difference between for loop and while loop, that in for loop, I is incremented by itself, but in while loop, we need to do it ourselves. And I don't increase it by 1, but rather I increase it by 2. Right, if I increase it only by 1, it will print also the odd numbers. I want to skip the odd numbers, so I increase it by 2. Okay, so these are 3 different solutions. I suppose there are more solutions. So one thing to keep in mind, note that the condition is I is less equal, meaning when I is equal to 2n, we still go inside the loop. Okay. That was our second example. So the example was to print numbers 2 up to 2n. All right. Maybe I'll add some more comments here. Cast string into an int. Good. Let's try a third example. Oh, that's a nice example. So here is what we want to do now. You know what? Let's change it to some other symbol, like sharp. So here's what we want. We want to get a number n, and we want to print an n by n square that consists of these sharps. And I'll be kind of lazy for a second, and I'll copy this part to get n. Okay. So what do we want to do here? Okay, so we will have n many rows. So let's say for I in range n. What do we want to do for I in range n? We want to print the string consisting of 4 of these symbols sharp. Here's one way to do it. We'll use another variable for j in range n. We'll say print sharp, but don't skip the line. And then we're going to print nothing just to skip to the next line. Okay, so the inner for loop prints 1 line of n sharps. This print skips to the next line without going to the next line. Okay, let's try. I don't know, n equals 5, let's say. All right, it seems to do something. So let's try to debug this actually. Okay, I need to enter n, let's say n equals 4. So now I don't have one variable, I have 2 variables, I and j. So in the beginning, I is 0, and we increment only j. Okay, so j is 0 first, and we print a sharp. Then j is 1, we print another sharp. Then j is 2, we print another one. With j is 3, we print another one. What does this line do? Well, it doesn't print anything, but it skips to the next line. Okay, now I is incremented to 1, and j starts from 0 again, right? Because we say on j is in range n, it starts from 0, and it prints sharp, another one, another one, another one. It prints 4 of them, then goes to the next line. Then I becomes 3. So I corresponds to the row, and j sort of corresponds to the column, right? So I are the rows, j's are the columns. And we continue in this fashion. Okay. That's a way to solve this. Here is an alternative solution. And let me tell you something about, I think I mentioned this already. So let's say that I is equal to, oh, we need to put sharp times n. So sharp times n, this creates a string consisting of n sharps. And then we just print line. Okay, so we print one line, I don't know, n is 4. Here's an alternative solution. It also works. Each time it creates one line and prints it. Just for fun, would we like to do it using a while loop? Yeah, let's try it using a while. Okay, so we'll take this as the basis. And in the beginning, we'll set I to be 0. And we'll say while I is less than n, do something. And in the end, don't forget to increment I by 1. Okay. What do we want to do here? So we set j to be 0, and we'll say while j is less than n, print, right? So this one prints the jth symbol in the ith row. Okay, and in the end, we skip. Okay, so one thing I'm trying to get oh yeah, and we forgot one small thing. Because if we didn't have it, well, then things would go wrong. Say 4, but then it would start printing everything. Why? Because we forgot to increment j. So j just increases and increases and increases. Sorry, j doesn't increase. We just go into this while loop and it says print, and then j is still 0, and we print again and again and again. So we need to increment j by 1. Okay. And if we run it like this, n equals 3, so it prints a 3 by 3 square. And one thing I would like you to notice is the indentation. So in Python, indentations are important. Okay, if you start writing code like this, it will simply not compile. It will say, "Oh, I don't understand what's the indentation here." So the indentation must be all consistent. Just use a tab. Okay, so there is a while loop, and this is the body of the outer while loop, and this is the body of the inner while loop. So we do 2 indentations and so on. Okay, so there is several things here. One thing is the indentation, and the other one is we could write it either using a for loop or using a while loop. Okay, so that's the logic here. And notice that inside the outer while loop, j every time starts from 0. Every time reset. So for every row, reset j to be 0. And then increase up to n. Okay, that's our example with printing a square. What's the next example? Oh yeah, here is another example. How about now? So this time, here's what we want. I would like to get a number n, just as before, and print a triangle that looks like this, and height will be exactly n. So let me steal only the first part. So how would we do that? So first we want to print 1 star, then 2 stars, then 3 stars, then 4 stars. Okay. So we'll do the following. For I in range, I think it's 1 up to n plus 1. So it means it will go 1, 2, 3 up to n. Print, what do we want to print? We want to print star, but multiplied by I. It's not the nicest thing, but so this corresponds to a string, and then we repeat it I times. Repeat the string I times. That's one way to do it. I don't know, let's say 4. Oh, it prints 1, 2, 3, 4. So notice the boundaries of range are 1 up to n. N minus 1 is excluded. Okay, so that's a solution. Let's try to do it again using while loop. Because we kind of practice while loops. So here's what we'll do: write I equals 0, and then we'll say, or sorry, we'll start with I equals 1, and then we'll say while I is less or equal n. Print the string with I asterisks. Okay, so either of the two, let's say number is 5. What's wrong here? Oh, why does it continue printing? Why does it print 2 stars? Well, the reason is that I forgot to increment I. Let's try it now. Yeah, using while loop, now it works. Fantastic. Great. That's our 4th example. We're getting used to while. Here's another example. Again, I would like to print a triangle, but now a triangle will have 1 star, and then 3, and then 5, and then 7, and so on. And the height would be n. So how do I do that? Right, so I will want to do something like, how can I do it? So here's an idea. In the row 0, here's what I'm going to print. I'm going to print n minus 1 empty spaces, then star, then Well, then I can skip. In row number 1, I will print n minus 2 empty spaces, then 3 stars, 3 asterisks. In row 2, I'm going to print n minus 3 empty spaces and then 5 asterisks. In row 3, I'm going to print n minus 4 empty spaces and 7 asterisks. Okay, so I think you see the pattern at this point. Okay, so we'll do for I in range n. We'll print 2 things. We'll first print the empty space times n minus 1. And after that, we'll print asterisks times multiplied by what? So when it's 0, it's 1. When it's 1, it's 3. I suppose times 2 times I plus 1. I think so. Oh yeah, and I forgot to get n. This is our code. Let's try to enter number 5. It still runs the previous one. Enter number 5. It doesn't quite work. Oh, because it's not n minus 1, it's n minus 1 minus I minus 1, I think. Okay, and now it works fine. Okay, so the point here is that we sort of try to figure out what happens in the 0th row, in the first row, in the second row, in the third row, and so on. And we notice that in the 0th row, we need to do this many spaces, and then that many, right, n minus 1 spaces, and then 1 asterisk. And then n minus 2 empty spaces, and 3 asterisks, and so on. Let's try to make it a bit more interesting. Let me try to slightly change it. I'm going to not ask for spaces, but rather for pluses. Pluses are hard to distinguish from stars. Okay, this one is a bit easier. Okay, let's say this is what I want to do. Okay. How will I do that? So I'll put this many minuses. And then I'll put 1 star. Oh, and then this many minuses again. And I think this is exactly what will happen in each row. So we'll do n minus 3, n minus 4, and he will do n minus 3, n minus 4, and he will have 5 and 7. Okay. So the only thing we need to change is to add also minuses to the end. Let's try. 5. So it almost works, except that it puts spaces between them, which is not something I wanted. How can we fix this? Well, one way to fix this would be to do the 3 prints separately. So I first print the minuses, then the stars, then the minuses again. And when we run it, oh, perfect. Exactly, just exactly as we want it. So that's another example. Okay, so this is what we did. So let's try to do 6, because then it's kind of easier to see what's going on. So that's printing triangle with stars one more time. Okay, that's another example. So what's our next example? Print pattern. Oh yeah, we want to print this pattern. So again, I copy this part. And then how can I print this pattern? Well, okay, we'll have I in range. Well, in fact, it will not be n. It will be 1 up to including n. What do you want to print? So first we'll print, what did we say last time? We'll print space times n minus I minus 1. Right, so these will be the spaces that we're printing. Okay, that's the first part. And then we will print the number I. So let's turn it into a string. I multiplied by 2I plus 1. I think that's what we want. So this one prints the spaces on the left, and this one prints the digit I several times. Let's try. I don't know, number 5. Still wrong one. 5. Because I forgot to add this. Something is still wrong, because when I is 1, it should print 1 time, but here it prints 3. And when I is 3, it prints let me copy exactly. Let me copy the same thing here. We'll print n minus 1 spaces, and then a single one. Then 3 2s, then this many 3s, then 7 4s. So this is what we want to do. Okay, in row 1, we'll print n minus 1 spaces. We'll call it spaces. And then we'll print 7 times the number 4. So I think what we want to do is not +1, but rather -1, because when I is 1, we want it to be 1. When I is 2, we want it to be 3. When I is 3, we want it to be 5, and so on. So this seems to be the right way to do it. Except that with 5, something still looks wrong. I'm not sure why. Oh, because we start from 1. Right, we don't have row 0. We sort of have row 1, row 2, row 3, row 4. So if that's the case, then we should just do -I. Okay, so we have row 1, right? Because our range starts from 1 and not from 0. And now it will be beautiful. Okay, that's exactly what we want. So in the first row, we put n minus 1 spaces, so it's here n minus I. In the second row, n minus 2 spaces, that's n minus I. And then the number of ones we put, number of twos we put. That's our example. So first we put n minus 1 spaces, then the second row n minus 2, and then n minus 3, and then n minus 4 until we reach 0. Okay. That's another pattern. Okay. So here's another example. Now we want to print again this triangle, but this time, the pattern will be different. So we'll put a 1 in the first row, but then 2 1 2 in the second row, and then 3 1 3 in the 3 2 1 2 3 in the next row. Okay. So how do we print the ith row? Yeah, and I think it will be convenient to start with I equals 1. Okay. So I think first thing we do, we put n minus 1 spaces. And then we need to have a loop that will say, in the beginning, print only 1, then print 2 1 2. So this one print the spaces. And we should somehow start from I and go down and then go up. Okay. Well, let's do it with a while loop and not with a for loop. So we'll set j to be I in the beginning. So this one, the next part will be print 3 to 1 to 3. Okay, so we set j to be 1. Sorry, we set j to be 3, let's say. And while j is while j is more than 1, here is what we do. We print j and don't skip to the next line. So here j is equal to 1. We'll print 1. And then we'll say while j is less or equal I, print j again. So this loop is going down, meaning 3 to 1, 3 2. And then we print, well, maybe I'll increase it to 4 so it's easier to see. And this loop is going up 2 3 4. And after we're done with this, we should just print, go to the next line. Next line. So we use both for loops and while loops. Let's try to run it and we'll see how it works. Let's take a small number like 4. Oh, what did we forget? What's wrong? So we're going down, so we need to subtract 1 from j when going down and increase j when going up. And after this, still something is wrong, because in 1 and stay in the same line. Let's try again. That almost works. And stay in the same line. So what was wrong here? Here we forgot to tell it to stay in the same line. And now, so it seems to be printing 2 ones. Why is it printing 2 ones? Well, it prints 1 here. Let's try to debug this. Enter number 5. So in the beginning, we said I equals 1. We print this many spaces. We said j to be, yeah, j to be 1, while j is greater than, no, we skip the loop. We only print 1. Okay, 1 is printed. Oh, and then we print 1 again. So we should not do this one, right? So here we should increment j to be 2. Because 1 was already printed. Let's try it now. It's almost good, except that we forgot one small thing. We forgot that we need to the number of spaces that we skip, so it depends on the ith row. And look at this now, it's almost perfect. It's n minus I. Okay, so the strategy was sort of the same as before. But it was slightly more complicated. So let me tell you exactly what the strategy was now. So in the second row, we print n minus 2 spaces, then 2, then 1, then 2. In the third row, maybe I'll do the fourth row, and then it will be clear what we're doing. We print n minus 4 spaces, then we print 4, 3, 2 using a loop. Then we just print 1, and then we go back up using another loop. Okay, so it's exactly what it says here. So this loop is going down. This loop is going up. And then we'll print next line. Okay, so one loop is going down. Then we print 1, increment j to 2 because 1 was already printed. And then we go to the next line. Okay, that's another example. That's kind of, kind of a tricky example. Go over this example at home again. Okay, so here's how to do an infinite loop. Let's say while I is, I don't know, while y is less than 2, print, we already saw this example, star. It wasn't on purpose. This time I'll do it on purpose. It just prints stars and it doesn't stop. If we want to stop it, we can either press this button, the stop button, or Control C probably also works. Okay, So another way to do it would be, you know, I equals 0 while I is less than 10. Yeah, that also works. You know, it's not very difficult to write code that doesn't work, right? Or just simply writing while true. So really what while does, it takes the expression, it evaluates it to either true or false. If it's true, it goes into the body of the loop. If false, it doesn't go there. Okay. Yeah, it's a silly example, but basically infinite loops, don't do it. Okay, here's the next example. So this will be kind of an interactive example with the user. Here's what we want. We want to read a bunch of numbers from the user and print their sum. And here's how I want it to happen. Here is what the interaction will say, enter a number. The user will enter a number. Then we will ask, do you want to continue? If the user says yes or says why, then we continue and we say enter a number again and enter again until the user says no. All right. Okay, so how do we do that? So maybe we'll start with just setting sum to be 0. And in the very end, we'll print the sum is, and then sum. Okay, so this is print the result. And this is initialize sum to be 0. Always remember to initialize your variables. If not, then it's not clear what will be the value. So we'll say, I don't know, let's say the number will be x. Enter a number. Now, okay, so we got the first number. And we increment sum by x. Okay. But now we want to ask, do you want to continue? Right, so maybe we'll write something. Answer is input. Do you want to continue? And yeah, what do we do next? So maybe we'll say something if ans. Okay, I will show you two more examples. So create a list that says yes or y, then do something else, stop. So it's not a real code, right? I'm just trying to think what I'm going to do. But then I want to have a loop doing this many times. Okay, so here's an idea. I'll have a variable called continue, and in the beginning it will be true. So this will be a Boolean variable. It will know if the user wants to continue. And here is what we do. While continue is true, okay, or while cont, same as while cont equals true. If the answer is true, then we'll ask to enter another number, and we increment the sum. And otherwise, we just set it to be false. And when we set it to be false, next time we go into the checking for the while loop, continue will say false, and this thing will stop. Let's try to run it. I don't know, enter number 10. And of course, as usual, I forgot to cast everything into an int. Let's try it again. I'll enter number 10. It says, do you want to continue? Right, so now we're in this line. I can print either yes or y. So this condition says, if answer belongs to this list of possible positive answers, I'm going here. It says enter a number. So my number now will be, I don't know, 8. It skips the else, right? So it's either if or else. So it skips the else, goes here, continue is still true. Do you want to continue again? Let's say yes again. Maybe now the number will be 3. Do you want to continue? I say no. And the sum becomes 21. So it's this 10 plus 8 plus 3. Okay, let's try to debug this to see again what's really going on. Okay, so what happened? Oh, it expects us to enter a number. So I've entered the first number, 12. Let's see. So the sum becomes 12 and continue is true. While continue is true, we ask, do you want to continue? And in the console, let's say we print yes. Does the answer belong to yes or y? Yes, it does. In this case, we go inside the body of the if statement. We get a new x. We say enter a number, I don't know, 3 or -3. It's being added to the sum. So now the sum is equal to 9, right? Because it's 12 minus 3, it's 9. Do you want to continue again? Maybe this time I'll type no. Does it belong to y or yes? No, it doesn't. So it goes to else. Continue becomes false. When checking here, cont is false. What does it mean it's false? We'll exit the loop. And we'll print the sum. And notice I use now this this slightly easier way to format the print statements. I print first the string, then comma, then sum. One, maybe suggestion to improve it. I don't know. Let's say I put yes with capital letters. It will exit. How can I improve this? Yeah, maybe I'll take everything to lowercase. So I'm checking if the lowercase of the answer is yes. And in this case, 3, yes, it will still work. So by the way, for no, right, I'm not checking anywhere for no, I'm just checking for yes. So even if I write this, it will still exit. But we expect the user to be nice in the sense that, we expect them to write yes or no. Maybe another way would be to write starts with y. So anything that starts with y will be considered a yes, and everything else would be considered a no. That's also possible. All right. So let's try next example. Okay, so that's kind of an easy example, I think. We get a number n and return the sum 1 plus 2 plus 3 up to n. So how do we do that? So initialize sum to be 0. And then we'll have a for loop for I in range n. Maybe 1 up to n plus 1, right? Because we want the range to be 1, 2, 3, n. Sum plus equal I. And print the sum is sum. This should work. Let's say 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 10. And let's try again. Maybe if it's 5, then it's 15. All right. So that works. We could use a while loop. Let's try to use a while loop. We'll set I to be 1. And we'll say while I is less or equal n, less or equal n. And then we increment the sum. And then after incrementing the sum, we also increment I. Okay, so sum is increased by I and I is increased by 1. Let's try to do it again. Using a while loop, it's still 15. Let's try for 6, should be 21. Yeah, works in both. Oh yeah, and there is another way to do it. So actually using a formula. So using a formula is actually the easiest one because we know that it is equal to exactly n times n plus 1 divided by 2. Use the formula that 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus n is equal to n times n plus 1 divided by 2. And all three of these work. And let me cast it into int so that it doesn't show the point 0. So these are 3 ways we could do it. We solve this question using 3 different ways. And in a way, this way is better than this because this one requires sort of many operations, requires n operations. And here it requires only 4 operations or something. Add, multiply, and then divide by 2. So it's it takes less time. I will say for now, this is more efficient. But we'll talk about efficiency probably sometime later, not today. Okay? But I'm just saying it, only 3 operations. Okay, good. Here's another example. Let's say we have a list of numbers. I know 1, 4, 7, -3, -8, 100, 98, 6, 44. We want to print only the even numbers from the list. How do we do that? Well, for variable in list, okay, if something, print this variable. So what do we want to check? If variable is even, how do we check if it's even? Remember last time we said that you could do you could compute the remainder of the integer division. So you take the number, you divide it by 2, and you look at the remainder. And if the remainder is 0, it means that, well, that the number is even. That's all. So here we go. It prints 4, -8, and 198, and 6, and 44. I think that's an easy example. We have 4 more examples to go. Maybe we'll do only 3. We'll see. Yeah, probably we will not do this one. Okay, we have 3 examples to go. So we get a list of numbers, maybe 1, 4, 8, 11, 15, 20. And we want to check if it's sorted or not. So how do we check if it's sorted? So we want to check that 1 is less than 4, and 4 is less than 8, and 8 is less than 11, and so on. So here's how we'll do it. We'll have a variable called isSorted. And in the beginning, it will be true, but it will change to false if we find something wrong. And we'll set I to be 1. And we'll say while I is less than, or maybe we'll set I to be 0. While I is less, okay, so here's what I want to do roughly. I want to say if list in position I is greater than list in position I plus 1, then is sorted will become false. Okay. And I'm going to increment I in each step. Oh yeah, and we'll take n to be the length of the list. So let's see. In the beginning, I will be 0, then it will be 1, then it will be 2. When it reaches n minus 2, we should stop. Right, so as long as it's strictly smaller than n minus 1, as long as it's here, we compare it to the next item, and each step we check that there is a strict inequality. Okay, and then if is sorted, print lst is sorted, and otherwise is not sorted. And you know what? We'll even we'll print found okay, not sorted in the indices I and I plus 1. Okay. Let's try to run this one. This one is sorted. But if, for example, we put 18 here, so from 18 to 11, it will not be sorted, right? Now it's not sorted. And it says not sorted in the indices 2 and 3. Let's try to do debugging to actually see what's going on here. Okay, so we take n is 6. I is 0. So first we compare the 0th index to the first index. We compare 1 and 4. 1 and 4, yeah, 1 and 4 are sorted, everything good. We increment I by 1. Next, I is 1, which means we compare 4 to 18. This is also sorted. We increment I again. 18 and 11, that's not sorted. So is sorted is false, and also print a message. So we can increase I, doesn't matter. And next time we go in, we check, is it sorted? No, it's not sorted. It's not sorted, so we exit, and then we print the appropriate message. Okay, so here we go. Okay, that's our next example. Okay, next example will be to check if a number is prime. Okay, so n again will be input. Please enter a number. How do we check if a number is prime or not? So to check if a number is prime, meaning it is not divisible by 2, 3, 4, and minus 1. Okay. So we'll have a Boolean that will know if we found a divisor of n. And we'll say while, okay, and we'll have a variable I. So I will play this role of 2, 3, 4, up to n minus 1. So I in the beginning will be 2. And while I is less equal n minus 1, here's what we do. If n, the remainder of I is 0, remember, equal means that we compare, then found divisor is equal to true. Oh yeah, and we should put and found divisor is false. Right. And otherwise go to the next. Otherwise go to the next I. And then if found divisor print n is not prime, otherwise print n is prime. Okay. Well, and here PyCharm actually helps me. It says writing equal false is kind of not very nice. It's better to write not found divisor. So this is exactly the same as equals false. And maybe we'll also change the order here. If not found any divisor, then n is prime, and otherwise it's not prime. Let's try 7. Oh yeah, I forgot it again. So it says 7 is prime, that's good. What about 8? 8 is not prime. I don't know, 15. 15 is not prime, but 17 is prime. Okay. So the logic is the following. So we increment I in each step. And if, this says I n is divisible by I, well, with remainder 0. If that's the case, we set found to be true, and then we stop. And otherwise, we just go to the next I. And if we didn't find any divisors, then n is prime, and otherwise it's not. That's the whole thing. Okay, and one last example. I want a program that gets a number and prints all its divisors and prints, let's say 1, 3, 5, 15. So it prints all the divisors. And it will be kind of convenient to take this one and just modify it. So how do we modify it? We enter a number. Oh, we didn't have to copy it. It was much easier. If I divides n, then we'll just print I. That's it. And in the end, we'll just go once, go skip a line. So that's all. How do we find all divisors of a number? We start from 1 up to n. If n is divisible by I, just print I. And go to the next number. And what I forgot is to go to the next number. Let's say I'll choose a number, I don't know, 25. It will print 1, 5, 25. And if I choose 36, it will print all these numbers are divisors of 36. Okay. So these are all the questions I wanted to do for today. There was one more, but I think it's better to skip it. For everything we did, so today we learned about while loop, but more, and we did a bunch of examples. Please try all these examples yourself. Run them again, try them again, write the code on your own. Okay, looking at me will not teach you how to be, a better programmer. Just writing a code on your own will. So please write the code on your, kind of rewrite all the assignments, rewrite all these questions on your own, run them, debug them. And I hope, this will help you practice for loop, while loop, if, lists, everything we did so far. All right, that's all for today. Thank you all.